NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Casey Hunt joins me from D.C., anchor of KCDC. Casey, it's no surprise Mick Mulvaney is saying we know where the White House stands on Obamacare. We absolutely know, and they had fine time to repeal and replace, and they didn't. Do they really think this is going to be there in the Senate bill, or is this just a ploy because once they pull it out, other Republicans are going to ignore other bad things that are in there and they'll push this thing through?
I think there's a real chance it could end up in the Senate bill. I think it also could potentially be taken out if, in fact, Susan Collins draws a line in the sand over it. Now, she's said publicly she thinks it would be a mistake to include it, but it's not clear yet that it's going to be enough to make her oppose this bill wholesale. I mean, the reason it's there is because the Congressional Budget Office essentially estimates that it saves the government money, about $338 billion over the course of the 10-year plan. That's basically because the government would be paying out less in Medicaid expansion money and less in subsidies because a lot of people would simply stop buying insurance. They wouldn't be mandated to do it anymore. So Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, has been a main proponent of this. He's called and talked to the president directly about it. He's the one who's pushing it, and he basically says, look, keeping this in there lets us, expand some other things that could cause bigger problems. On the House side, there's a lot of people from New York and New Jersey concerned, for example, about the state and local tax deduction. That's very expensive. This potentially gives them some flexibility in other areas. I think the question is really just going to be how much does this end up kind of in the political circular firing squad? Do they essentially, does it become something that is an albatross around this bill's neck that Democrats can seize on, or does that argument not get traction? And I think that if it doesn't, this bill could potentially be on a glide path. I mean, Democrats have had trouble attacking it. Republicans have had more success convincing Americans that, hey, this is a tax cut that's going to help you, it's going to help the local businesses in your community, etc. So they haven't been able to really get the same kind of emotional response that they did with health care. And frankly, that's given tax reform some significant momentum.
You think this thing has the numbers? I think it's going to get voted in.
I think it's going to be close like everything else, but I think that the sense on Capitol Hill right now is that this is more likely to pass than not. And it's a much, much different feeling than when they were trying to get health care done. And you got the sense that there were a lot of people that were being dragged kicking and screaming to the Senate floor to vote for this. It doesn't feel that way in this case, Steph.
All right, I want to bring my panel in, Rick Tyler and Congressman Josh Gottheimer. And I also want to point out Republican Congressman Roy Blunt over the weekend, when defending this tax bill, said that, well, the reason people don't see the benefits, it hasn't been appropriately reported by the press. I want to point something out. It has been 144 days since I interviewed anyone from the White House working on tax reform. That's when I interviewed Gary Cohn. I want to make something clear. Every single day, I ask the White House, can I please speak to someone, an architect of this tax reform bill, not to attack it, because that's actually my background, because every day we cover tax reform on this show and on our show at 11 a.m. We do explainers, we do breakdowns. So anytime a Republican or the White House is saying this isn't covered by the media, it absolutely is. And here we are at day 144. I hope on day 145, I get the chance to sit down and speak to one of the architects. All right, gentlemen, one of the biggest losers on this bill seems to be blue-collar workers, first responders, firefighters, police officers. Because if you cut state and local taxes, they get paid out of local taxes. You're from New Jersey. This matters to you. Hugely.
If you are a cop and a teacher in Paramus, New Jersey, and you own a home, your taxes will go up $5,000 under this tax hike plan. This is the problem. This whole thing is done on the backs of the Northeast. It's one of those things that they're willing to admit. One of my colleagues came in the day of the vote the other day and said, yeah, today's the great day we get to stick it to the Northeast. So New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, we are all going to get a tax hike under this bill, including cops and firefighters. This is what stands out to me. I talk to people who are working on this tax reform bill, and they're saying the only thing we need to get done, we have to just get this thing through. But let's say they get it through. This is based on trickle-down economics, which is hopeful and aspirational. If it doesn't work, merely passing this isn't a win. Think about what this is going to do to America for years to come. When you think about teachers who will no longer be able to write off pencils and school supplies, that's according to the House bill. The Senate bill, they will get a deduction. And then you think about people who, I don't know, own sports teams, like professional football teams, and they do get LLC treatment. How do we say this is going to be great for America for years to come? I think teachers, they matter.
Okay, my wife's a teacher. My daughter's a teacher. We take the deduction, right? My daughter will be a teacher, so she will take the deduction.
And thank you to both of them.
Look, I think there's a huge communications problem about this. Trickle-down economics has a bad theory, the idea, but saying that the government, look, I don't believe in left-wing social engineering any more than I believe in, or right-wing social engineering any more than left-wing social engineering. So the problem with this bill is the Republicans have overpromised what it will do, right? And the problem you have now is we are essentially at full employment, Stephanie, right? So the big problem is the wage gap, right? But there is no bill, right, that's going to make up the wage gap. Unless you want to go with wage and price controls, and like Nixon did, you don't want to do that. So
you could do double the deduction for your employees. You could have targeted moves to corporations. We don't have targeted moves. We have a blanket cut.
I think, look, I like the idea of making the corporate tax 20%, and I like the fact of making it permanent because it allows businesses to, but treat them all the same, right? But you can't. They didn't take away all the deductions, right? So we used to have, so they talk about a 35% rate. The effective rate is probably around 18%. So go ahead and make it 20% permanent.
But get rid of the deductions.
Right, they'll deal with that, but they won't deal with the deductions. So it's kind of a really difficult time to actually, because you have on the Republican side deficit reduction. That's got to be important. And I do think that we can do things that will actually grow the economy. I have maybe a fundamental disagreement with you in terms of if we give the lower class a tax cut, because they don't pay much. They don't pay most of the taxes. Consumerism is not going to drive the economy to great heights. The great heights of our economies always come from investment. And investment creates the next Google, Apple.
Then we don't have a fundamental disagreement.
Right.
But if we balloon our deficit, our deficit and cut budgets,
that's a problem.
Then we can't invest in education. We know that you're not going to be able to deduct your student debt, your tuition. Those are the kind of innovations that are going to impact social injustice.
This tax bill is driven by keeping people in power. That's not new, but that's what it is.
And we haven't even talked about the estate tax.
Right, I mean, you're making exactly the right point. We've not actually made any.
Can you say that one more time, looking into the camera? Sorry. Yes.
We've not made any of the tough decisions, right? And I think you're right. I believe in corporate tax reform too. We got to get the rates down, but you have to close the loopholes. We decided not to deal with the loopholes.
When the loopholes still exist, it's the most extraordinary hookup ever.
Right, and then we say, okay, who are we going to nail on this one? Right, so we look around and we say, okay, right over there, the people who already pay a lot of the taxes, New York, New Jersey, let's make them pay for the whole thing. Right, these are the states that are actually already paying for it. Right, we get such a poor return on investment back from the federal government now in New Jersey and New York, right, 33 cents on the dollar. And you look at Mississippi, I was looking at it again, they get $4.38 back for every federal dollar they send in already. And now we're just giving them another huge break here on the backs of people in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. That to me, and it's easy, right? They don't have to worry about those votes, so they say forget it. That to me should be part of the conversation.